Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Chapter 37. Anthony Lawrence POV. Are you sure you're ready for this? We don't have to. I can wait, Elias whispered with a teasing smirk, his expression soft but filled with longing. We were lying together on my bed, both of us nervous yet drawn to each other in ways we couldn't ignore. Elias leaned closer, his warmth pressing against me. My heart was racing, not because I didn't want him near, but because I was terrified of making mistakes. The feelings inside me were overwhelming, too strong to stop, and Elias clearly didn't want to stop either. He wrapped his arms around me, his touch both steady and protective. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. I think I'm ready, I said in a shaky voice, unsure of where this would lead but unable to deny the pull between us. For so long, my life had been nothing but stress, an endless cycle of responsibilities, expectations, and exhaustion. There was no space for romance, no time for myself. My friends Cole and Jasmine always joked that I would grow old without ever experiencing love. Honestly, I believed them. I was about to turn 22, and before Elias, I thought another year would pass in lonely silence. But now, here he was, looking at me like I was more than the burden of my past, more than the pressure of my family's expectations. You know, Elias said suddenly, his voice dropping, I'm the last person you should trust with something as important as this. After everything I've done to you. I hesitated, guilt washing over me. I'm not innocent either. I almost destroyed you. I made choices I'm not proud of. If anything, maybe we deserve each other. Elias let out a dry laugh, though his eyes flickered with pain. Still, he reached for me, his hand steady on my waist, his touch grounding me. The tension between us grew until I thought I might burst, but then, he stopped. Instead of giving in, he pressed a firm kiss to my lips, his hand brushing tenderly against my cheek. We can't go any further, Elias admitted softly, smiling in a way that was both gentle and sad. Why? I asked, desperate to hold on to the moment, desperate not to feel empty again. Because it's time for you to wake up, he whispered with a faint laugh, giving me one last kiss, before everything around me dissolved. Anthony, are you all right? I called you but you didn't answer. I blinked, startled back into reality by the voice of a nurse. My surroundings came into focus. The hospital examination room, the white coat on my shoulders, the piles of work waiting for me. Not my bed. Not Elias. I rubbed my eyes quickly, embarrassed by the memory of what I had just dreamed. My cheeks burned, but I forced myself to focus. Sorry. I must have been lost in thought. What did you need? Freedom hadn't felt as sweet as I thought it would. After 2 weeks back from captivity, the weight of rumors, distrust, and the endless backlog of work had nearly crushed me. Patients looked at me with suspicion, whispers followed me in the halls, and the media painted me as someone I wasn't. The truth, that I had been kidnapped, was something I couldn't reveal publicly. Leah had forbidden it. My friends and family knew, but to the world, I had simply been away. Even so, my reputation had taken a beating. Cole, my best friend and a lawyer, had fought to protect me. Thanks to him, I hadn't lost my license or faced charges. But I knew things would never return to the way they were. I drowned myself in work, 14-hour days at the hospital, helping Jasmine at her cafe, burying myself in responsibilities so I wouldn't have to face the thoughts that haunted me at night. Because every time I closed my eyes, Elias was there, in dreams I didn't want, in feelings I couldn't explain. Jasmine noticed, of course. She always did. You look exhausted, she said one evening at the cafe. I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. But she didn't believe me. She hugged me so tightly I thought she'd never let go. Her client stared, but she didn't care. You disappeared for months. Don't expect us to just pretend nothing happened. I sighed. Please, Jasmine, I don't want to be reminded every time I walk into a room. Just treat me like I'm the same as before. Before she could argue further, someone I hadn't wanted to see barged in, Madison. She flung her arms around me, ignoring Jasmine's warning glare. "You missed my birthday. How could you?" she demanded. I stumbled through an awkward apology, but Jasmine quickly intervened with her usual bluntness. "Maddie, he's not interested. Well, let's just say he's not into girls." My face flushed, and Madison ran out, embarrassed. "That was harsh," I muttered. "You'll thank me later," Jasmine said flatly. Not long after, Cole walked in and overheard enough to give me a look. "Aunt, is that true?" "I don't know," I admitted quietly. "I'm confused." Cole crossed his arms, studying me. "You know we'll accept you no matter what. But if you're not sure, maybe you should give yourself the chance to find out." He suggested I meet someone new, a colleague of his named Oliver. I resisted, afraid, unsure if these feelings were real or if they only existed because of Elias. But Cole wouldn't let me hide forever. And so, with no more excuses left, I agreed. Maybe this was the only way to figure out if what I felt for Elias was just a shadow of the past, or something I couldn't deny. Chapter 38. Elias Easton POV. I felt everything at once, and somehow nothing at all, the moment I saw Anthony step into another man's car. I shouldn't have been there. I wasn't fully recovered, my stomach still cramped, my head pounded, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. But I drove to Anthony's place anyway, convinced I could hold it together. Disappointment, anger, and something that hurt far deeper crowded my chest as I watched him leave with a stranger I'd never seen before. From my parked car, I snapped a quick photo and sent it to Eric. "Find out who this is." I'd hoped, quietly, stubbornly, that maybe Anthony liked me even a little. People usually chased me. Leah did. Others did. Anthony didn't. He argued. He ran. He even tried to hurt me. Part of me wanted to give up. The other part couldn't. My parents raised me to never let disrespect go unanswered. My sister Emily had once chased a love that didn't love her back, and it destroyed her. I told myself I'd never be that reckless. Yet here I was, sitting in a corner booth of a modest restaurant, watching Anthony and his date laugh by the window, pretending I wasn't breaking my own rules. "Excuse me, sir, you can't sit here without ordering," a young waitress said, firm but polite. "And please don't stare at other customers." "I'll take something," I muttered, scanning the menu without seeing a word. "2 small drinks." She left, and I checked my phone. Eric's reply arrived. "Oliver. 21. Junior lawyer. Clean record. Nothing remarkable." My jaw clenched. Boring or not, he had Anthony's attention, and that was enough. The waitress set the drinks down. "Anything else?" I nodded toward the window. "Do you think they look good together?" She lifted a brow. "They seem happy." It was an annoyingly reasonable answer. "He's my husband," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes widened. "Keep that to yourself." I slid some cash across the table, more than the bill would ever be. "Please give that gentleman a reason to step away for a minute. I need to talk to Anthony. Alone." She hesitated, then pocketed the money with a sigh. "I don't like cheaters," she murmured. "But this is between you two." "Understood," I said. "Thank you." A few minutes later, after an apologetic mishap with a glass of red wine, Oliver excused himself to the restroom. Anthony started to follow, but the waitress gently held him back with small talk. That was my opening. When Anthony finally looked up and saw me, the color drained from his face. "Elias," he whispered, glancing around. "At least you remember my name," I said, trying, and failing, to keep the sting from my voice. "We need to talk." "I'm on a date," he said, voice unsteady. "You can't be here. We're not doing this in front of people." I kept my tone low. 5 minutes. Outside. He hesitated. The worry in his eyes told me he thought I'd cause a scene. I wouldn't, not tonight. When he didn't move, I added, quieter, "Please." Anthony gathered his things and stepped outside with me. I led him toward my car, more urgent than gentle, but careful. He pulled back. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, frustrated. "Don't you have any?" He stopped himself. "Boundaries?" My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I came because I saw you with someone else. The words sounded smaller than the feeling behind them. And because I'm not good at letting go. He stared at me, then exhaled. We're over, Elias. We never even began, I said. Not properly. He shook his head. This isn't the place. Then let's go somewhere we can talk without an audience. I motioned toward the car. I'll bring you straight home. Reluctantly, he slid into the passenger seat. The drive was tight with silence, the streetlights stretching like thin threads between us. When we reached his building, we took the elevator up, 2 people, past and present wedged between floors. At his door he stalled. I don't want another fight. Neither do I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. Inside, he kept distance between us. Say what you need to say. All the sharp replies I'd rehearsed dissolved. What came out was raw and unpolished. I saw you laugh with him. I can't remember you laughing like that with me. Anthony's expression softened, then guarded again. We hurt each other, Elias. I nodded once. I know. The room blurred at the edges. The headache surged. I steadied myself on the back of a chair. You're not well, he said, stepping closer on instinct. You shouldn't have come out like this. I'm fine, I lied, the room pitching. I pressed fingers to my temple, willing the dizziness to pass. It didn't. A cough racked through me harder than it should have. Anthony's voice lost its edge. Sit down. He guided me to the bed and handed me water. You need a doctor. I had one. I tried to joke, but it came out thin. He keeps avoiding me. He didn't answer that. He disappeared for a moment, then returned with a small kit. Breathe. Slow. He checked my pulse, steady, then not. The worry in his eyes wasn't pretend. I didn't come to start a war, I said hoarsely. I wanted to talk. To say I'm trying to be better. I just don't always know how. Anthony looked at me for a long time. The distance between us felt heavy, but not empty. You can't show up and corner me when you're jealous, he said gently but firmly. That's not how trust is built. I swallowed. I know. And you don't get to decide who I see, he added, softer now. Even if there's still something here. The headache sharpened, forcing my eyes shut. I leaned back and focused on my breathing like he told me to. After a while, the worst of it passed. He stood, uncertain. I'm going to call Eric. You shouldn't be alone tonight. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I won't argue. Anthony lingered at the doorway, conflicted. We'll talk properly when you're stable. Clear ground rules. No ambushing me in public. No dramatics. I almost smiled. I'll try. He nodded, then moved to make the call. For the first time that night, I felt the flare of anger cool into something humbler. Regret, maybe. Hope, if I was brave enough to name it. Maybe we couldn't fix everything tonight, but we could stop breaking it further. And for now, that had to be enough. Chapter 39. Anthony Lawrence POV. I don't need comfort, Oliver. I said it as gently as I could, for what felt like the 1000th time. He kept asking how he could make me feel better. I appreciated the care, but pity made my chest feel tight. I hadn't told Oliver, or anyone, what happened the night before, how Elias appeared, ruined my date, and then lost control. I didn't want more sympathy, and I definitely didn't want to relive it. I've always been the type to carry things quietly, smile on the outside, steady voice, steady hands. People think it's avoidance. Maybe it is. But it's how I've survived. Do you want me to stay when Elias wakes up? Or should I go? Oliver asked, coming from the kitchen with 2 cups of tea. He sat beside me on the gray couch and handed one over. Thank you. I managed a small smile. You must be tired. It might be better if you rest at home. When Elias collapsed in my bedroom, I'd panicked. I couldn't call the police or an ambulance. Leah would never allow that, and Sam needed at least one parent who wasn't facing more chaos. I didn't have the right equipment at home, and I had no car to move him quietly. So I called the only person who could help without asking dangerous questions, Oliver. I told him Elias was a friend who was very ill and had passed out at my place. He believed me. He helped me get Elias into his car and kept watch while I stabilized him at the hospital. 6 hours later, we brought him back to my apartment to rest. "Don't worry about me," Oliver said, stifling a yawn and smiling anyway. "I'll stay as long as you need." I hadn't wanted a date to begin with, but I found myself liking Oliver's calm. No sparks, no rush, just a decent person. We were the same age and height. He was a little more muscular, pale skin, light brown hair, warm hazel eyes. A steady job. A normal life. Everything I used to think I wanted. I still didn't feel that pull toward him. But with Oliver, I felt safe. Maybe, I told myself, feelings could grow. "I think I can manage now," I said, gently signaling that I needed time alone. "Thank you again. I didn't think you'd actually come." "Of course, your friend was sick. How could I be upset?" He finished his tea and stood, pulling on his coat. At the door, he hesitated, cheeks a little pink. The opposite of Elias in every way. "Would you like to see me again?" he asked, voice careful. "Yes. Why not?" I answered honestly. His eyes lit up. "I'd love that. It might be a while, though. My parents are away and I'm babysitting my little sister. I can come to your place if that helps," I offered. "I like kids." "That would be wonderful," he said, stepping closer. He wanted to reach for my hand or kiss me, I could tell, but he waited. He always waited. He hugged me briefly. "If you need anything, call me." Maybe it was guilt for the half-date I'd abandoned, or maybe curiosity, but I cupped his cheeks and gave him a soft kiss. It felt polite. No spark. Not like the mess in my chest when I thought of Elias. Still, I hoped time might change that. Oliver smiled, grateful. "Oh, hey buddy," he said suddenly, looking past me. I turned. Elias was awake, fully dressed, leaning against the wall, arms folded, unreadable. "You should go," I whispered to Oliver. He understood at once, waved a quick goodbye to Elias, pressed a quick, gentle kiss to my lips, and slipped out. I took our empty cups to the kitchen, determined to act like my world was not tilting. Elias followed slowly. "I'm sorry," he said at last. "For last night. I only wanted to talk." "You mean before or after you lost control?" I asked, my voice dry. I'd seen flashes of goodness in him, in how he spoke to Sam, in rare moments of restraint, and he had promised never to hurt me. But last night he crossed a line. "I was hurt when I saw you with him," Elias said. "I didn't handle it well." "Don't call Oliver names," I snapped. "He helped get you to the hospital when I couldn't risk calling anyone else. If the roles were reversed, would you have done the same?" He looked stricken, and for a moment I almost softened. But I held my ground. "There hasn't been a single moment where you really let me show you what I feel," he said quietly, bowing his head over the counter. "What do you feel, Elias? Anger? Possession?" I asked, exhausted. "I think I feel love," he said, barely more than a whisper. I stared at the kettle in my hands, unsure what to say. "You're still recovering, physically and otherwise. Please, go home and get help." "I'm thinking clearly," he replied, stung. "I mean it." "Elias, stop." "If none of this had happened," he interrupted, "no kidnapping, no forced marriage, none of the chaos, would you have wanted to date me?" I'm not answering that. The bruises on my arms and waist ached under my sweatshirt. The physical pain was nothing compared to the weight in my chest. Elias ran a hand through his hair, then pulled 2 folded documents from his pocket and set them on the counter. "This is payment for the time you worked for me. If it's not enough, tell me." He pushed it toward me. "I don't want your money. And these are divorce papers," he added, voice flat. "Sign at the bottom and I'll go." I skimmed them, wary of traps. He'd already signed. He moved to the living room window, where the first colors of sunrise painted the sky in soft orange and gold. I looked down at the signature line, then at his back. We didn't fit. Neither of us was ready to give up our world for the others. My friends and family knew too much, and his family would never accept me. I signed. Elias returned, checked the papers, and noted that I hadn't returned the paycheck. He slipped on his shoes and picked up his keys. I waited, expecting some sharp comment. Instead, a small, broken laugh escaped him. Sorry for crashing into your life and breaking things, he said, eyes empty and sad. I hope he treats you well. I hope you're happy. He swallowed, then took a breath. Before I go, could I have one last kiss? Elias, I began, but he cut in, words tumbling. I know I've made mistakes, unforgivable ones. I'm trying to learn how to do better. I don't have many people to ask. I didn't know if it was remorse or performance. Maybe both. Either way, I needed an ending. One kiss. Then you leave? I asked. He nodded, hope flickering. He didn't move closer. He didn't reach for me. For once, he waited. So, I stepped forward, lifted his face with my hands, and pressed a brief, careful kiss to his lips. This time everything in me jolted awake. Memories, mistakes, the stubborn part of my heart that still reacted to him. I pulled back quickly. You didn't say it had to be long. It was enough, he said, a faint, surprised smile touching his face. He turned, opened the door, and slipped out. The apartment felt very quiet. I could start fresh with Oliver. I could build the calm life I'd always wanted. But I wasn't as happy as I'd imagined. Elias wasn't someone I wanted in my future. Still, I knew I wouldn't forget him. I wish we'd met before the worst parts, before everything else got in the way. Chapter 40. Elias Easton POV. This is a joke, right? I paused in the doorway of my parents' dining room. Don't be rude. Come sit, my mother said, smoothing a few stray hairs with a nervous hand. My parents sat on one side of the long table. On the other side were the last people I wanted to see, Leah, her parents, and her two brothers. The scene tugged at a memory I couldn't shake, bringing Anthony here for dinner, acting like I could control everything and everyone. I'd been cold to him then. Remembering it made my stomach twist. I took the only empty chair, center of the room, center of attention. I'd chosen to end my marriage to Anthony. I told myself it was time to move on. He'd signed so easily, almost without looking. I pretended that didn't sting. My parents were dressed to perfection, every detail in place. I hadn't cared about appearances in weeks. Across from them, Leah sat with our son, Sam, on her lap, her way of reminding me to keep calm. I would never cause a scene in front of him. He'd already seen too much. I'd spent nearly a month recovering, doing what Anthony told me for once. Rest, heal, try to be still. I wasn't sure I was ready for whatever this was. Although you're a bit late, we're glad you made it, my mother said, forcing a smile. As you can see, Leah and her family are here to share a wonderful announcement, my father added, far too cheerful. The word wonderful made every muscle in my body tense. Their guards lined the hall, and Leah's brothers, Rick and Daniel, watched me like I might spring. I want to remind everyone that Elias is still recovering, my mother said carefully. Rick snorted. Daniel chuckled. I looked away, jaw tight. Leah's parents studied me. Her mother's face was unreadable, her father's smile a little too satisfied. Leah's hand smoothed Sam's hair as he leaned into her, tired and quiet. He missed Anthony. So did I, though I'd never say it here. I kept my voice even. You don't get to judge what happened between me and my ex. Rick bristled. Daniel muttered something under his breath. I let it go, for Sam's sake. Leah sighed. Can we focus? We have business to discuss. Her father nodded to a server, who appeared with a covered tray. The lid lifted to reveal a white cake decorated with roses. In red script across the center, "Will you marry me?" My heart stumbled. Without thinking, I pushed the platter away, the cake sliding harmlessly onto the tablecloth. Surprise, Leah said, amused. My answer is no, I said quietly but firmly. Laughter rose from her side of the table. My mother looked stricken. My father cleared his throat. We've already arranged everything, he said, voice stiff. The agreements are signed. Leah will move into your home. You didn't ask me, I replied. We accepted your first choice before, he said pointedly. That didn't work out. You need stability. I met Leah's gaze. You and I both know why that dinner with Anthony went the way it did. I didn't say more. There was no point in reopening wounds they would never acknowledge. Show some respect, Rick snapped. She isn't my future wife, I said. Sam shifted, exhausted. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I counted my breaths and unclenched my hands beneath the table. I could fight. I could also make things worse for everyone, especially for Sam. And Anthony, who didn't deserve to be dragged through another storm. I glanced down at my left hand. The gold band still caught the light, our wedding ring, even after the papers were signed. I had held on to it like a promise I couldn't keep. Did it really matter if I resisted this? Sam needed stability. My parents wanted peace with Leah's family. And I had made mistakes that kept finding their way back to me. With a quiet breath, I slid the ring off and tucked it safely into my pocket. "I'll keep you safe," I told the memory of what it once meant. The rest of the evening unfolded like a script I hadn't written. Sam was taken to bed, too tired to keep his eyes open. Rings were exchanged. A brief, formal kiss. Applause. Conversation loosened. Our families laughed like old friends planning a future. Deals, goals, timelines. I sat still, hands folded, eyes on nothing in particular. No one seemed to notice. Or maybe they chose not to. Leah had what she wanted. Our families had their alliance. And me? I felt quiet. No theatrics. No self-pity. Just the steady understanding that choices have consequences. Anthony had survived far worse because of me. If this was the balance settling, I could accept it. Karma doesn't shout. It simply arrives, takes a seat at the table, and waits for you to recognize it. Chapter 41. Anthony Lawrence POV. Deep down, I knew I was risking Oliver's heart. The more time we spent together, the more he seemed to care, and the less I could pretend. After I signed the divorce papers, I kept expecting Elias to appear at my door. He didn't. Still, every time I closed my eyes, I saw his expression the last time we spoke, and a knot of regret tightened in my chest. I reminded myself I'd made the right choice, over and over again. "Aunt, you're zoning out again," Oliver teased lightly, pulling me back from thoughts I shouldn't have been having. Weeks had passed since I'd seen Elias, yet his shadow lingered like he was standing right beside me. The worst part was the guilt. Even on good days with Oliver, even after several gentle, careful kisses, I felt like my mind was somewhere else. He initiated most of them, sometimes I did, just so my distance wouldn't be obvious. But the spark never came. He'd already introduced me to his parents. He took us seriously, maybe more seriously than I could. I could tell he was holding back from asking for an official relationship. "Sorry to long shift at the hospital," I said with a small smile. He returned it and rested his hand over mine. Across the table, my parents watched him with easy admiration. They liked his kindness, his steadiness. I tried to delay their meeting, knowing they'd imagine a future that I couldn't guarantee. I kept telling myself I'd be honest with Oliver soon, that I'd wait for a moment when it wouldn't hurt so much. But lately it felt like almost everything I did hurt someone. "So, Oliver," Mom asked warmly, "how have you been?" Every time we ask, Anthony is very brief. She gave me a pointed look. Oliver laughed softly and bit his lip, suddenly shy. "I figured it'd be better if Oliver told you himself," I said, an easy excuse and not entirely fair. Oliver rescued us with a joke. Then he answered, "Classes, exams, shifts at the firm." He squeezed my hand and said I helped him through the tough days. "Anthony's been through a lot too," Mom added, her eyes soft with worry. "Mom," I said gently. We'd agreed not to go into details. My dad let it pass as he always did now, waiting for me to speak when I was ready. "What happened?" Oliver asked, concerned. "It's okay," I said with a practiced smile. "Really?" Dad huffed a laugh. It could be the end of the world and he'd still say he's fine. Then, more serious, "I hope you become a great lawyer, Oliver. Some people should answer for what they've done." Oliver glanced at me. "Because of the rumors Spencer spread?" Dad shook his head. "He's the least of our worries." "It's getting late," I said quickly, not wanting the conversation to drift toward Elias. I wasn't hiding the truth because Leah demanded it anymore. I just couldn't bring more trouble to Elias's door, not when he had finally let me go. I didn't mean to cause tension, Oliver apologized. He apologized a lot, for things that weren't his fault. You did nothing wrong, Mom assured him. We just worry that Anthony protects the wrong people. I'm 21, I said, trying not to bristle. I know what I'm doing. Dad's voice stayed calm. It's your life. We'll be here if it gets messy. His words warmed me in a way I hadn't expected. We'd changed since I came home. We talked like a family now, less about achievements, more about how I was actually doing. It shouldn't have taken a crisis to get us here, but I was grateful anyway. After dinner, we hugged goodbye and Oliver drove me home. He was quiet, eyes on the road, 80s music low on the radio. You're not going to tell me what that was about, are you? He asked at last. Sometimes I feel like you don't trust me. I do, I said. Tonight just wasn't important. He drew a long breath. You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. I just feel like when you say you want to be with me, you're saying it to be kind. If that's true, don't worry about hurting me, just tell me. We parked outside my building. He turned off the music and faced me. The smile stayed, but his eyes were wet. I thought about Elias, about the line my family could never cross, about how love and loyalty sometimes pulled in opposite directions. I couldn't ask Oliver to wait for something that wasn't coming. I want to be honest, I said quietly. I don't think this will work. It's okay, he whispered, dabbing at his eyes with a tissue and turning away. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry. You don't have to apologize, I said. I've been unfair. It's late, I added, unsure how to help. Do you want to stay on the couch tonight? You shouldn't drive like this. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Can we still be friends? I asked. Sure, he said, the words small but sincere. We walked to the door in silence. He managed a brave smile. The guilt pressed heavy, but it was the right thing. Elias Easton. From my car across the street, I watched Anthony and Oliver disappear into his building. My knuckles cracked against the steering wheel, an old, useless habit. Being gentle had earned me bruises I didn't show. Being hard had earned me the reputation I couldn't shake. Either way, I was the one left behind. A light flicked on in Anthony's apartment. I looked away before I could imagine the rest. On the bridge out of the city, I reached into my pocket, pulled out the ring I'd kept far too long, and held it one last time. Then I let it go. The ripple vanished in the dark water. A hollow opened in my chest, sharp, clean, undeniable. But with it came a breath I hadn't been able to take for weeks. I told myself this was closure. I told myself to keep driving. Chapter 42. Elias Easton POV. Shouldn't you be on vacation? I asked as Eric slipped into my office in the middle of a serious talk with my father. Dad disliked interruptions, but he tolerated Eric. When my father stepped out, Eric grinned. Maybe I missed you. Very funny, I muttered, taking the couch while he spun into my desk chair, my chair. So, I said, skeptical, why are you here? You always send me away when you're not okay, he replied, the humor fading. So, I'm here to help. I'm fine, I said with a shrug, catching up on work, living my life. Eric leaned back. You still care about a certain doctor? No. You do, he said simply. He can enjoy his new boyfriend, I answered, too flat, and Eric burst into laughter. Totally over him, he teased. He pulled open a drawer and lifted out a small photo, Anthony, smiling. Also, totally not keeping souvenirs. I crossed the room, took the picture, and fed it to the shredder. The sound was too loud in the quiet office. Forgot that was there, I said evenly. And for the record, I only spoke to his boss so Anthony wouldn't be overworked. Call it balance. Sure, Eric said, unconvinced. He poured himself a modest splash of wine. Anyway, I thought you'd want to know. Anthony was attacked. The glass paused halfway to my mouth. I coughed as the wine caught wrong. By who? I don't know, Eric said, watching me. But I figured it didn't matter to you. It doesn't, I said, voice steadying. The image wouldn't leave my head. Dad returned to finish our discussion. I tried to focus, but my thoughts kept drifting. After the third repeated question, he stood with a sigh. Fix whatever is distracting you. We'll continue tomorrow. As soon as he left, I grabbed my keys and slipped out before Eric could stop me. I told myself I only needed information, not reassurance. At Anthony's building, I used the entry key but stopped at his door. No answer. I tried again. The lock clicked. Anthony stood there, towel in his hands, damp hair pushed back. Sweatpants. A sweater. Perfectly fine. Sorry, I was in the shower, he said, then blinked. Elias. You weren't hurt? I asked, scanning him despite myself. Hurt? No. He frowned. What is this about? I stared a beat too long, then noticed what I should have hidden, the ring on my finger. Congratulations, he said gently, eyes flicking to it. Oh. I cleared my throat. Yes. I'm engaged. Leah? He asked. I nodded. I'm happy with the decision. The words felt rehearsed. Sam's happy too. He needed his mother. I kept my tone neutral, and he offered a polite, small smile. Silence pressed in. I stepped back. There was a misunderstanding. I'll go. Wait, Anthony said. I looked up. I know you're busy with everything, but Oliver, his little sister, and I are going bowling tomorrow. Do you want to come? For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Bowling? With Anthony and Oliver? Every instinct said no. I didn't bowl. I didn't like being outplayed in public, least of all in front of him. You could bring Sam, he added quickly. And Eric. Even Leah, if she wants. I still didn't understand why he wanted me there. Maybe it was an olive branch. Maybe just for Sam. Either way, the thought of seeing Anthony's smile tugged at something I tried not to name. Leah's busy, I said at last. But Sam would like that. I'll ask Eric. Anthony's smile warmed. He gave me the time and address. I'm only doing this for Sam, I said, stepping toward the elevator. Sure, he answered, a little wave. See you tomorrow. As the doors slid shut, I repeated it under my breath. I'm only doing this for Sam. Chapter 43. Anthony Lawrence POV. Movie theaters weren't really my thing. I preferred watching films at home, alone or with people I felt safe with, but I couldn't turn down my friends forever. Besides, I needed the distraction. Jasmine, you're chewing louder than the speakers, Cole whispered. Then you need better ears, she shot back, crunching playfully. Oliver, seated beside me, stifled a laugh and faced the screen. Of the four of us, he was the only one actually following the plot. Cole and Jasmine kept bickering, and I kept wrestling my thoughts back from places I didn't want them to go. Everything that happened still weighed on me, what others did, and what I did in response. Leaving Sam behind. The deal with Leah. Poisoning Elias to escape. Even when I told myself it was survival, the guilt lingered. A few days ago, I tried to make amends by inviting Elias to go bowling with me and Oliver. Not my smartest idea. He never came. I told myself I wasn't disappointed. I was. Guys, please, I whispered as popcorn flew. People in the row ahead turned and shushed us. My cheeks burned. Then my phone buzzed. I fumbled to silence it, too late. I take back the responsible comment, Jasmine teased. A text glowed on my screen from an unknown number. Meet me behind the theater. A cold rush hit my chest. I stood, legs unsteady. Restroom, I told Oliver. He nodded, concerned, and I slipped into the hallway and out into the night air. City light washed the alley in pale blue. A black car idled alone. For a second I thought it had to be Leah. With the tracker she'd forced on me, she always knew where I was. But as I approached, a familiar face looked up from a lit phone screen. Elias. I stopped short. How did you find me? He held up a phone showing a map with a single red dot behind the theater. This is Leah's device, he said evenly. Want to explain? She put a chip in my arm, I admitted, swallowing. Part of a deal. I know about the chip, he said. Why she did it, and why you didn't tell me, that's what I'm asking. We stared at each other in the quiet. Get in, he said at last, voice low but controlled. Seeing my hesitation, he exhaled, removed something from his jacket, and set it out of reach. Nothing will happen. If it makes you feel safer, fine. But please, get in so we can talk. I slid into the passenger seat. He pulled away from the curb and, after a few blocks, broke the silence. So, you'd rather live with a tracker than sit in a car and talk to me? That's ironic. It wasn't voluntary, I said. I made a deal. What deal? I stared at my hands. It's complicated. He drove in silence for a while, then, more gently, try me. You remember the night I ran? I asked. Unforgettable, he said dryly. Leah helped me. In exchange, I had to stay away from you, let her track me, and keep quiet about something else. I drew a breath. She's the one who wanted Sam hurt. Elias's expression didn't change, but the air in the car did. We already caught the shooter, he said. Sam identified him. Why would Sam put his mother in danger? I asked quietly. The road unspooled in front of us. How do I know you're not lying? He asked. You don't, I said. Either you trust me or you don't. I wanted to take Sam with me when I left, but I couldn't keep him safe. You deserve to know the truth before you marry Leah. I'm not marrying her, he said at once. You're engaged, I reminded him. Last time we spoke, you said you were happy about it. I said that to get a reaction, he admitted, pulling the car onto a quiet overlook at the edge of the city. Her family cornered me when I was at my worst. I felt trapped. I said what I said because I thought you were happy with Oliver. He turned off the engine and cracked the windows. Night air drifted in. He reached into the back seat, set a small bag on my lap, and leaned back. Then I'll take you home. And I'll deal with Leah. You won't face this alone. He stared out at the dark skyline, the pain in his face unguarded. For the first time, I saw past the armor, the exhaustion, the dark circles, the effort it took for him to sit still and listen instead of breaking things to feel in control. I set the food aside. He glanced over. Not hungry. I didn't answer. Instead, I leaned across the console and pressed a brief, careful kiss to his lips. He froze, startled. When I pulled back, he let out a shaky breath. I thought you had a boyfriend, he said, brows knit. I never said that, I answered softly. You assumed. He hesitated. Then what is this? Maybe we save the questions for later, I said. Just for tonight. He turned off the interior light. Only the street lamps outside softened the car in gold. We sat closer. His hands framed my face, gentle and steady, my fingers threaded into his hair. We didn't rush it, no dramatics, no lines crossed. Just the warmth of a quiet, steady kiss, and the kind of closeness that felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. For a few minutes, the city was far away. And for once, peace didn't feel impossible. We'd had too many lows and not enough highs. I couldn't change the past, but I could choose what came next. I wasn't going to waste a second chance. Chapter 44. Elias Easton POV. Is this our final stop or just a break? Anthony asked, confused as I pulled into a hospital parking lot after a long drive. We've arrived, I said, unbuckling my seatbelt and stepping out. He followed, studying my face for clues. I knew he probably imagined a first date somewhere soft and romantic. But first, we had something important to handle. Since the night Anthony gave me a second chance, we'd spent as much time together as we could. Even so, I sometimes caught him staring off, weighing whether this thing between us should continue or end before anyone got hurt. A part of me still feared he'd say it was all a mistake. If this is your idea of a first date, I may need to rethink my life choices, Anthony joked weakly as we headed inside. I took his hand and guided him through the busy lobby. The antiseptic smell, the noise, the rush of carts and footsteps, it all grated on my nerves. I hurried us into the elevator and pressed for the second floor, grateful for the brief quiet. Do you have an illness I don't know about? Anthony asked, brow arched. Who said we're here for me? I answered, slipping an arm around his waist. He frowned. I have no idea what you're talking about. When the doors opened, I walked him straight to a consultation room. A patient stepped out at that exact moment. Perfect timing. Sir, do you have an appointment? A nurse started, hurrying toward us. We won't be long, I said, and opened the door, gently tugging Anthony inside. Dr. Spencer Channing looked up, startled. He nearly knocked over his computer, then plastered on a smug smile the moment he spotted Anthony. "Long time no see," he said lightly. "Do I need to call security?" the nurse asked from the doorway. "It's fine," Spencer replied too quickly. "I expected them." She closed the door, clearly unsure. "What can I do for you?" he asked, folding his arms. "We're not here to chat," I said, meeting his gaze. "If you're as skilled as you claim, prove it." Anthony turned to me, voice low. "What is this?" Anthony has a tracking chip in his right upper arm. "It needs to come out," I said evenly. Spencer's eyebrows lifted. "And you want me to do it?" "I'm flattered." "Knock it off," Anthony snapped, then faced me hurt and angry. "You brought me here without telling me?" I started. "I'm leaving," he said, reaching for the door. "What's the matter, nervous?" Spencer asked, leaning back with a smirk. Anthony froze, cheeks flushing. I stepped close and took his hands. 10 minutes, and Leah can't track you anymore. You won't have to live with that fear. I'll help protect you, but you deserve your own space too. Why him? Anthony asked, nodding toward Spencer. There are 100 other doctors. I chose my words carefully, because he knows exactly what he did to you in the past. He can do one thing right today. Then I softened. We're here now. Let's get it over with. Anthony bit his lip, thinking. On one condition, you don't touch him. No revenge. I don't want you in legal trouble because of me. I exhaled. I promise. He nodded, and I brushed a quick kiss against his forehead before he lay back on the exam couch. Finally, Spencer muttered as he pulled on gloves and a mask. He cleaned the area, located the chip by touch, and prepared his instruments. Anthony's fingers gripped the edge of the table. I moved to his side and took his free hand. Can you pinpoint where you feel it? Spencer asked. Here, roughly, Anthony said, indicating the spot. Spencer found it with a gentle press. Got it. He cleaned the skin again. You're going to feel pressure, he warned. He worked quickly, minimal commentary, efficient movements. Anthony breathed through the discomfort, jaw clenched, eyes shut. I kept my hand in his and murmured steady, quiet reassurance. Almost done, Spencer said after a few tense moments. He placed a small object in a dish, then closed and dressed the tiny incision with sterile strips and a bandage. You'll be sore today. Keep it clean and dry. I've given a mild pain reliever. It may make you sleepy. Keep the chip or toss it, he added, lifting the dish. Throw it away, I said, focused only on Anthony. Anthony sat up slowly, cradling his arm, a little pale but upright. I set payment on Spencer's desk without counting. Then I helped Anthony to the hall. He refused to be carried, in public at least, so we took our time to the car. Back at his apartment, he leaned against the kitchen counter while I filled a glass of water. He drank, then set the glass down, gazed distant. Are you mad at me? I asked quietly. He hadn't said a word since we left the hospital. You chose this hospital because you wanted to confront him, he said. You wanted to hurt him. I wanted that, I admitted. But I also wanted you free. I thought I could solve both things at once. He's not worth it, Anthony said, shaking his head. And no more violence. I held his look, then nodded. His mouth lifted into a small smile that loosened something tight in my chest. I stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath, and lowered my head slowly, giving him every chance to turn away. He slid a hand to the back of my neck and drew me in. Our lips met in a careful, lingering kiss. The world went quiet for a moment. When we parted, I lifted him gently to sit on the counter so he wouldn't strain his arm. He looped his arms lightly around my shoulders, and I rested my hands at his waist, keeping space respectful and easy. How long will you keep me a secret from your family and friends? I asked softly. The question slipped out before I could stop it. He hesitated. Do I need to remind you our relationship could cause problems, especially for you? Leah won't exactly celebrate. I can handle people being disappointed in me, I said. The question is, can you? I don't want to think about that right now, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. He hopped down carefully from the counter. You should rest. I'll get some ice for my arm. I nodded, swallowing the urge to push. He was right, it wasn't the moment to force answers. I wanted to say something bright to lift the mood, but lying wouldn't help either. This was going to be hard. And we both knew it. Chapter 45. Anthony Lawrence POV. What happened to your arm? Jasmine asked after my sleeve slid up, revealing the bandage on my upper arm. Cole glanced up from the stack of job applications we were reviewing for her cafe. We were trying to hire help so she wouldn't have to lean on us so much, though I didn't mind being here. I burned myself cooking. Nothing serious, I said. They didn't need every detail of what had gone wrong in my life. One question would lead to another, and sooner or later we'd land on Elias, on feelings I still didn't fully understand. I kept searching for the exact moment those feelings had changed. During the time I was trapped with Elias, there were rare flashes of kindness, but I told myself they were part of a game. Even after I escaped, we had our battles. The truth is, my feelings crept up quietly until, all at once, they were impossible to ignore. And now I was stuck between past and present. I thought you hated cooking, Cole said, skeptical, peeking over the counter to make sure customers were fine before looking back at me. I winced inwardly. I wasn't just a bad liar, I forgot basic facts when I got nervous. I'm trying new things, I said, hoping the topic would fade. A new customer walked in, which sent Cole to the register. Jasmine took that as her cue to keep going. Is this a new coping strategy? She asked, genuinely worried. I'd turned down therapy for now, too much in motion, too much to unpack. So Jasmine had tried to help, reading every book she could find about supporting survivors. I loved her for it, even if I needed her more as my best friend than as a self-taught counselor. Jasmine, Aunt, Cole interrupted, hurrying back with a tight expression. Someone's asking for you. I followed his gaze. In a cozy cafe like this, it didn't take long to notice the man at a corner table lifting his hand and smiling directly at me. My chest tightened. Running wasn't an option, not with my friends and a room full of strangers here. Do you know him, or should we call someone? Jasmine whispered, going pale. He looks like the kind of smooth-talking guy who, well, you know. You did not just call the person who hurt Aunt good-looking, Cole muttered. He was, but that's not the point, Jasmine said quickly. I couldn't have known what would happen. They weren't wrong to be protective. People don't usually come in asking for a specific server. That had happened to me exactly once, and I vanished for months afterward. Technically, I wasn't even on shift, Cole was covering for me. But I knew better than to ignore a summons like this. He's harmless, I said, steadying my voice. A patient, Prof. He must have a question. The explanation didn't convince them, but it was enough to keep them seated while I walked toward the table. I checked the weight of the small safety tool in my jacket pocket and breathed in slowly. I hoped I wouldn't need it. More than anything, I wanted everyone in this cafe to stay safe. Jace, I said evenly. He laughed. Right to the point. I thought you'd be sunnier now that you're free. What do you want? First, to note how poorly you treat customers, he said lightly. And yes, I saw you check your pocket. I only came for dessert, and now I'm reconsidering my review. You're not here for cake, I said. He skimmed the menu anyway. What do you recommend, Anthony? He said my name like an accusation. Preferably something that won't end up in my face like at your charming reception. I'm asking you to leave, I said. Is that a threat, or are you hoping your husband appears to help? His eyes flicked to my bare hand. No ring. Interesting. Still together, though? Even though he's entangled elsewhere. His gaze dropped to my bandage. And you removed the tracker. Broke your deal with Leah. Bold. I tugged my sleeve down. Please go. He stood. No cake that. I'm trying to eat healthier anyway. But you won't mind a short walk, will you? It wasn't a question. Over at the counter, Cole had a kitchen knife hidden beside him and Jasmine clutched her phone, ready to dial. They didn't realize none of that would help here. I grabbed my jacket and bag, mouthing, "It's okay," to my friends. Then I stepped outside with Jace. He opened the passenger door of a sleek car. Her name is Isabel, he said, patting the dash. I bought her with my last payout. He pulled into traffic. You look nervous, Tony. Did you forget how Elias makes his money? I said nothing. I knew where Elias's power came from. Loving him didn't erase reality. It complicated it. And did you forget what to do when facing an enemy? Jace continued, half amused, half disappointed. Chatting. Complying. Getting in my car. Not your best day. What do you expect me to do? I asked quietly. You're more experienced than I am. That's my point, he said. Maybe this life isn't for you. Didn't you want peace? What do you want from me? He glanced over. I was sent to end things because you broke your deal with Leah. Instead, I thought I'd give you a tour, to remind you who Elias Easton is beneath the charm. I know his worst side, I said. I lived it. We drove to a neon-lit club. The music thumped even through the car doors. It's not just a club, Jace said. A brothel, once owned by Elias. He sold it to me. I stared straight ahead. It doesn't belong to him anymore. So, the past doesn't matter? Jace shook his head. You forgive everything? I stayed silent. He didn't stop there. We went from place to place, former properties, corners of the city where old stories still echoed. He told me the histories, one by one, in clinical detail. By the time we reached my building, my hands were shaking. I hope you'll start making better choices, Jace said lightly and drove off. I waited until his taillights vanished. Then I crumpled on the steps, fighting tears and losing. The city's colors dimmed around me, like someone had turned down the saturation on my world. I wanted someone to tell me what the right thing was, and how to live with it. Chapter 46. Elias Easton POV. Leah's idea of a child's birthday party left me speechless. The mansion pulsed with loud music, bright lights, and adult conversations that had nothing to do with a 9-year-old celebration. Guests crowded the marble floors, drinks were spilled, voices rose, and somewhere along the way Sam's birthday cake ended up crushed on the carpet. Not a single child was in sight. Dad, can I stay in my room? Sam asked from his wheelchair at the doorway, clearly overwhelmed. Sam has never liked crowds. Lately, walking for long periods has been painful and difficult, so he's been using the chair while we follow the plan Anthony recommended: medication, therapy, and patience. The uncertainty is hard. It hurts to know that my son may face a long recovery because of choices made by people who should have protected him. It's your birthday, I said, pushing away the knot of frustration in my chest. Let's at least find something good to eat. He hesitated, biting his lip. I can't. Mom said I'm not allowed to show up in the chair. I tried to walk, but my legs give out. I thought nothing tonight could make my mood worse. I was wrong. Forget what anyone said, I told him gently. We're going to make this a good day. I wheeled him toward the buffet, ignoring the curious looks that faded quickly when I met them head-on. Look who's here, I said, relieved to spot Eric with Kai near the food. I still hadn't forgiven Kai for past mistakes, but he made Eric happy, and Sam adored his uncle. You're just in time, I teased, taking the extra plate Eric had piled high and passing it to Sam. Eric laughed and crouched to hug him. Happy birthday, buddy. Before we could do more, Leah swept in. What are you doing? She demanded. People are staring. Get him out of here. My jaw tightened. He's our son, I said, keeping my voice even. Her eyes flashed as she looked at Sam. My child wouldn't show up like this. The music didn't cover the silence that followed. Sam flinched and my heart clenched. Don't speak about him like that, I said louder now. He's recovering, and he needs kindness. Murmurs rippled through the room. Leah crossed her arms. This party is important. And so is our son, I answered. He's more important than any party. What happened next ended any hope of a calm conversation. Leah stepped too close, words sharp, and the room bristled. I signaled Eric to take Sam to his room while tensions rose around us. My parents arrived and urged everyone to stand down. I took a breath, unclasped the engagement ring, set it on the floor between us, and said, if this is what you think a family looks like, then we're done. I left the hall and went straight to Sam's room. He sat between Eric and Kai, trying to be brave. I lifted him carefully and held him close until his breathing slowed. It's okay, I whispered. I'm here. I asked Eric and Kai to pack some of Sam's things. He wouldn't be staying in the main house tonight. There's something you should know, Eric said quietly once Sam was drowsy. We stepped into the hall. One of our guys saw Jace pick up Anthony earlier. They stopped at several places, talked, and then Jace dropped him home. I frowned. Why? No idea, Eric said. But I wanted you to hear it before you decided to bring Sam to Anthony's place. If things are complicated right now, we shouldn't risk another disappointment for Sam. He was right, Sam needed calm, not more upheaval. I checked the time. For me, the night wasn't over. With adrenaline still buzzing and my priorities suddenly clearer than ever, I made a choice. I was done investing energy in people who didn't value us. Sam, and the few friends who truly showed up, came first. As for Anthony, I wouldn't chase him forever, but I owed it to both of us to find out where we stood. I hoped he hadn't given up on me yet. Chapter 47. Anthony Lawrence POV. I thought you were at Sam's birthday party. I was surprised to see Elias at my door, looking drained and tense. It's over, he said quietly, stepping inside. A part of me still doubted whether I could trust him. Another part wanted to. That tug-of-war between instinct and feeling left me unsure of what to do. Have you eaten today? He asked, already walking into the kitchen. His tone was casual, but something in his posture told me the party had gone badly. Yes, I said, then realized I probably hadn't. After my hospital shift, I'd helped Jasmine review applicants for the cafe, and then Jace had shown up, dragging me around the city until I finally came home and tried to calm down with a long bath. I knew he wanted to push me away from Elias. Still, I needed to make my own judgments. Elias didn't press me about food, he just started checking the cupboards. Lately, whenever he came over, he brought dinner or cooked. He never said it out loud, but my weight loss worried him, and I could see the guilt in his eyes whenever it came up. Did something happen at Sam's party? I asked, taking a seat at the island while he moved through the kitchen with easy confidence. Leah hit him, he said, voice tight, and said things she never should have said. My heart lurched. How is he? He'll stay with Eric for a while, Elias replied. I'm figuring out next steps. A small, selfish ache flickered. He hadn't asked if Sam could stay here, but as I watched him, I also sensed he was holding a little distance, like he was bracing for bad news. And Leah? I asked. She's out of the picture for me, he said. If my family doesn't like it, that's their problem. Sam comes first. The tension in the room sharpened. We both felt it. Elias glanced up. Don't worry, that's not your burden. What is that supposed to mean? Of course it's. Do you feel more anger at me right now than concern? He asked, unexpectedly cool. Eric said you spent the afternoon with Jace. Want to tell me why? Cold crept through me. We're not together, I said quickly. He wanted to talk. About what? I pushed a hand through my still damp hair. He drove me around to places you once owned and told me stories. About things you've done. Elias was quiet for a beat. And what do you think? Words tangled. Part of me recoiled from the past he can't change. Another part sees what he's doing now, putting Sam first, accepting Eric's relationship, giving me space and my freedom. He set a pan on the stove, the soft clink of utensils filling the silence. For the record, he said evenly, I don't hurt people for sport. I make choices, often terrible ones, after thinking through the consequences. You were my worst mistake. I regret it every day. He paused. As for the clubs, they were my family's business. When control passed to me, I gave people options and paid them fairly if they left. I didn't want that world, so I got out and sold to Jace, who'd wanted in without turning it into a feud. He met my eyes. Believe me or believe him. It's your call. I didn't take Jace at face value, I said. He never wanted what was best for me. I'd been shaken by what he said, yes, but I also knew there are always two sides. If I wanted this relationship to work, I had to show Elias I was willing to listen. I stood and moved closer. He glanced up. If you want something, ask. You don't have to. That won't be necessary, I said, smiling a little as I gently turned him from the stove. I rose on my toes and kissed him. He smiled against my lips and kissed me back, careful, unhurried. Since we'd reconnected, he rarely initiated. He was still gauging what I needed. He didn't yet realize how much I wanted him nearby. We drifted a few steps, bumping the counter and scattering a couple of chopped vegetables. We both laughed under our breath, and I rested my hands at his shoulders, feeling the steadiness there. "How long will we keep this a secret?" I asked softly. "From your family? From my friends?" "I can handle people being disappointed," he said. "Can you?" "Not tonight," I admitted. "Tonight, I just want us to be honest." His expression softened. The air between us felt new, uncertain but hopeful. "Dinner first?" he asked, a hint of a grin. "Dinner first," I agreed, squeezing his hand. Whatever came next wouldn't be simple. But for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face the uncertainty and to choose, day by day, the kind of life we could build. Chapter 48. Elias Easton POV. It wasn't my first time being close to someone. I'd dated before and it had been fine, good even, but never life-changing. Not even my first time with Leah made me nervous. Anthony was different. Standing there with him, everything felt new. For a moment I felt like a beginner, unsure, hopeful, afraid of ruining the fragile trust we were slowly rebuilding. I'd expected intimacy to be months or years away. I didn't want to rush him or make a single mistake. As we sat on the edge of his bed, kissing softly, I pulled back to check in. "You know we don't have anything prepared," I said gently, still catching my breath. "In the back of the second drawer," he said, cheeks warm. I reached for what we needed and set it beside us, my heart thudding with a tangle of nerves and gratitude. A flicker of doubt crossed my mind. The last time we'd been this close had ended badly, and earlier today Jace had tried to stir up old fears. I forced myself to be honest. "If this is about getting even or proving something, you can tell me. I'd rather hear the truth." Anthony's eyes widened. "Do you really think that?" It took a lot for me to ask for this. "I'm choosing you." His voice softened. "I'm trying to trust you, even after everything. If you want us to work, I need you to try too." He was right. I'd come here determined to protect him. I also needed to protect the trust he was offering. We both laughed when our questions crossed. "Have you? Do you?" And the tension eased. I moved closer, hands light at his waist, and paused again. "If we keep going, we go slow. We check in. If anything feels wrong, we stop." "Okay. Okay," he whispered, nodding. So we took our time. We talked. We breathed. We stayed close, choosing gentleness over speed. When he tensed, I waited. When I hesitated, he squeezed my hand. It wasn't about trying to be perfect. It was about choosing each other, moment by moment, with care. Eventually, words faded. I asked one last time, "Are you sure?" "Don't back out now," he said, smiling through his nerves. "I'm not going anywhere," I promised. I drew him into my arms and kissed him again as the room fell quiet and the city lights traced faint silver across the walls. We kept it tender, private, and ours. No rush, no pressure, just two people meeting in the middle. Much later, the soft crackle of something on the stove jolted me. "Oh no," I said, scrambling for my shorts and jogging to the kitchen to rescue the meal I'd started earlier. For once, I didn't mind the burnt edges. The reason I'd forgotten was worth it. Anthony Lawrence. Without meaning to, Elias had become my whole world. I didn't want to admit it before, but tonight left me no room to pretend. Wrapped in a blanket, I listened to him clatter around the kitchen and waited for regret to arrive. It didn't. Instead, a calm warmth settled in. We'd taken a big step, and we'd done it the right way, slow, respectful, and honest. We checked in. We stopped to laugh. We let go of the past for long enough to choose the present. Jace had tried to scare me with stories and places and shadows. But tonight reminded me I could make my own choices. I could face the truth about who Elias has been and still believe in who he's trying to become. Especially for Sam, and maybe for me too. I smiled into the quiet and pulled the blanket tighter. Whatever comes next won't be easy, but for the first time, I felt ready to try, together. Chapter 49. Anthony Lawrence POV. I hope you know we're upset with you, Jasmine said, shoulders tight with worry and frustration. But I answered your texts and told you I was fine, I reminded her as she showed me our chat, plus a list of missed calls. You answered hours later, Aunt, Cole added, settling into the seat across from me while I slid in beside Jasmine. It felt strange to be back in the same restaurant where Oliver once took me on a date. One Elias had ended far too dramatically. I didn't want to relive that night or explain why this place still made me tense. I'd made my choice yesterday to move forward with Elias. I couldn't keep wavering. Where's Ollie? I asked, glancing at the empty chair next to Cole. He's running late, which gives us time to talk, Jasmine said, already in interrogation mode. Easy-us, Cole warned. He knew how intense she could get. Haven't you seen the way he's walking? She whispered. Something happened. Heat flooded my face as I realized what she meant. I did my best to look casual and failed spectacularly. Good evening, I'm Rochelle. I'll be your server, said a young woman, tone flat, gum tucked in her cheek. My stomach dropped. I recognized her, the same waitress who had accidentally spilled wine on Oliver that night. She gave me a quick, knowing look, as if surprised I was still around. Those bracelets are gorgeous, Jasmine said politely. Thanks. They were pricey, Rochelle replied, flicking a glance my way. I ignored the jab and let everyone order. Ollie wanted the movies again, Cole said when our drinks arrived. You won't believe what he suggested, Jasmine groaned, stirring her cocktail. A kidnapping drama. We haven't told him everything, but Cole and I agreed that's the last thing you should watch. Some story about someone falling for their captor. I choked on my drink. Jasmine patted my back while I caught my breath and tried to steady my thoughts. I'd planned to tell them something important tonight. Suddenly that plan felt impossible. And then I heard myself say it anyway, too quickly to catch, too loud to take back. Both of them froze. Cole coughed. Jasmine blinked hard. Please repeat that, she said, voice tight. Because I hope I misheard you. Judging by your face, you didn't, I murmured. Is he blackmailing you? She demanded. If he's forcing you, I swear he won't get away with it. I shook my head. Finding the right words felt like climbing a cliff with no rope. You must be joking, Jasmine said, covering her mouth. Don't be dramatic, Cole said gently. She stared at him. Excuse me? If you're not concerned. I am, he said. I'm also trusting Ant to know his own mind. He can't make decisions right now. He's clearly overwhelmed, she insisted. I'm not brainwashed, I said more firmly than I felt. I'm trying to find happiness. Happiness? Jasmine echoed, disbelieving. Before I could answer, Rochelle returned with our food and a little smirk. You're good at rattling people, she muttered toward me. Jasmine shot her a look. The only one being rude is you. Please keep it professional. Rochelle lifted a shoulder. Whatever. And don't ask me to spill wine on anyone again. I'm done with that. She walked away. What was that about? Cole frowned. Doesn't matter, Jasmine said quickly, thankfully ending that thread. So, happiness? She prompted, turning back to me. I can't explain it perfectly, I said. But step by step, things started to change. I'm feeling something real, maybe for the first time. You two used to joke I'd be single forever. With how my life was planned for me, I started to believe it. Now I want to choose for myself. Silence settled over the table. Do you think he loves you as much as you love him? Jasmine asked at last. I think he does, I said. He doesn't see me as a possession anymore. He's been changing, especially for Sam. And if you break up, she pressed, will he let you live your own life? You know a lot about him. The question sat heavy between us. Jasmine had been through enough breakups to know how quickly things could change. Of course anything can happen, Cole said. But right now the priority is whether you're safe, Ant. I am, I said, though I knew safety was complicated in Elias's world. And are you being careful, in general? Jasmine asked, half concerned, half curious. Jas, Cole groaned. I just care about his well-being, she said. That's all. Mercifully, Oliver arrived, cheerful and out of breath, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. We didn't revisit Elias, at least not until later. After dinner, Jasmine drove me home while Cole took Oliver. She parked and turned to me, face calm but resolute. "If things with Elias are really serious," she said, "I want to meet him. I need to see for myself if he's changed. If I get even a hint that he isn't safe for you, I will do everything I can to protect you." "Fine," I said quietly. There was no point arguing. These were her terms for trying to accept this. And I understood. If Elias ever disappeared into a cell, Sam would be left in a dangerous vacuum. I couldn't let that happen. For now, all I could do was take one careful step at a time and hope the people I loved would take it with me. Chapter 50. Elias Easton POV. Since Sam's birthday, I had been avoiding my parents like the plague. I even went so far as to hire people to track their whereabouts so I wouldn't accidentally run into them. I didn't want apologies, excuses, or more attempts to convince me to stay tied to Leah. I knew exactly what they wanted, for me to remain bound to her so our family business could grow stronger. They despised Anthony, despite the fact that everyone knew I had kidnapped him and that most of what followed was against his will. Only Eric and a few of my bodyguards knew the truth. My parents didn't ask questions, they didn't want answers. And what they seemed to care about even less was Sam. Though his condition could improve, there was also the chance that he would never fully recover. I was certain that, given time, my parents would suggest ending his suffering before anyone else did. There was no way I would ever allow that. These were just a few of the many reasons I had decided to cut ties with them once and for all. At Emily's grave. "I was hoping to find you here." I turned at the sound of my father's voice. "Can't say I feel the same," I replied coldly, reaching for my phone to call the guards who were supposed to keep him away. "You think I didn't notice people following me?" "I'm not foolish," he said. "You killed them?" I asked, horrified. "Of course not," he replied evenly. "I paid them more than you did. A higher salary and a vacation always work." Fury boiled in my chest. Loyalty meant everything, and betrayal, even for money, cut deep. "Well, I was leaving anyway," I muttered, setting a bouquet of flowers down at my sister Emily's grave. 2 years had passed since she died, and today was not the day I wanted this conversation. "I came to talk," he said, placing his own flowers beside mine. "I'm busy," I shot back. "There's nothing to fix." "You're angry at the world, Elias," he pressed. "It's been weeks. You've ignored us, kept Sam from us, spied on us. Do you think this behavior solves anything?" "Childish." He called me childish. When Leah had nearly destroyed Sam's life, I was the one protecting him. And now I was being scolded? "Get used to my behavior," I said sharply, brushing past him. Leah called off the engagement. He called after me. I stopped, laughing bitterly. "No wonder you're here. You want me to fix it?" But he shook his head. "If she hadn't ended it, we would have." That surprised me. "Why?" I asked. "Found someone else to replace her with?" He sighed. "No. But the truth is, instead of creating alliances, you cause more enemies. We can't afford that." "So what?" I asked impatiently. "So," he said, stepping closer, "we won't involve ourselves in your personal life anymore. Who you marry, or if you marry at all, is up to you." For once, I was caught off guard. The endless battles about marriage had driven a wedge between us, and now he was letting it go? But, of course, there was a condition. "You'll return to work. Sam will come back home. And if you choose someone outside our world, I will be the one to train them." The first 2 conditions were fine. I'd avoided work since Sam's birthday and missed the sense of purpose it gave me. But the third, no. "There's no way I'll let you train Anthony," I said firmly. My father sighed at his name. "He has no skill in this life, Elias. That's unacceptable. If you want him safe, he needs to know how to protect himself." "I don't want him dragged further into this," I argued. I remembered how shaken he was after taking a life, how pale he'd gone when Jace revealed truths about me. We were just starting to find balance. Forcing this on him would break us. And what happens when his inexperience gets him, or you, or Sam, hurt? my father countered. You may not like it, but reality doesn't care. His words stung because they weren't wrong. I'd shown Anthony the basics: how to hold a weapon, how to defend himself if cornered. But it wasn't enough. Still, the idea of my father being the one to teach him unsettled me. And what if you accidentally hurt him during training? I asked dryly. He chuckled. If I wanted that, I've had countless chances already. I didn't find it funny, but a part of me felt slightly reassured. He walked to the bench before Emily's grave and patted the seat beside him. I hesitated, then sat. It had become tradition. Each year on this day, we came here to sit in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. After a while, my mother appeared too. She wrapped her arms around me tightly, as though afraid I would slip away again. Tears streaked her face as she sat down beside me. And for the first time in a long while, it was the three of us, quiet, grieving, yet still bound together by loss. Chapter 51. Anthony Lawrence POV. Both of my hands rested flat against Elias's chest, my breathing uneven, my whole body warm and trembling as I clung to him. It was still surreal at times, this closeness, this intimacy, with the very person who once terrified me but now made my heart race with just a look. A few months ago, I never would have believed it possible. Yet here we were. Elias shifted suddenly, rolling us so that he was above me. His steady rhythm and determination made me cling tighter, my thoughts scattering with every heartbeat. Since the first night we crossed this line, not a day had passed without us sharing moments like this. He had become my greatest weakness, and, strangely, my greatest source of strength. But what struck me most wasn't just the closeness. It was how much Elias had changed. The hardened, tense man I first knew was different now. He smiled more often. He carried himself with less anger. Even in our most private moments, there was more gentleness, more patience. The shadows that once haunted his face seemed lighter. Eventually, we collapsed side by side, breathless and quiet. I'll probably never get tired of this, Elias murmured, his voice hoarse, his cheeks faintly flushed. He raked his fingers through his dark hair, effortlessly putting it back in place. Meanwhile, I could only imagine how disheveled I looked, red-faced, messy-haired, hardly a picture of perfection. But Elias looked at me as though none of that mattered. Are you nervous about tonight? I asked, turning to face him. About what? His brow furrowed until I reminded him. We're going out with my friends. Oh. He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders loosening. For a second, I thought something serious had happened. Your friends? That's the least of my worries. I bit my lip. You are going to try to make a good impression, right? I'll show up, be myself, and let things play out. That's all I can promise, he said, standing to grab his clothes. Besides, they already hate me enough to last 10 lifetimes. Why set expectations too high? I frowned but chose not to argue. Deep down, I knew Elias wasn't wrong about how my friends viewed him. Still, I hoped tonight might be different. Time slipped away too quickly, and before I knew it we were standing at Jasmine's apartment door. She greeted me warmly, pulling me into a hug, only for her expression to harden the moment her eyes landed on Elias. I don't know why you're smiling, she said sharply. This isn't some happy get-together. My apologies, Elias replied, his tone edged with sarcasm. I didn't realize I was supposed to arrive with a specific mood. Anthony must have forgotten to mention that. My stomach sank. This was going to be a long night. Inside, we joined Cole, who stood to shake Elias's hand with hesitation. This is Cole, I began, but Jasmine quickly cut in. He's an upcoming lawyer. His father owns one of the biggest firms in town. Not someone to mess with. I sighed inwardly. Exactly the kind of remark I feared she'd make. Impressive, Elias said smoothly, unfazed. We sat down together, me beside Elias, Jasmine directly across from him, her eyes sharp as she studied his every move. When Elias glanced at his plate, then at Jasmine, he asked dryly, "Did you put something in here I should know about? Why don't you try it and find out?" she shot back. Elias smirked and switched our plates. Better safe than sorry. Jasmine scoffed. You have no manners. And threatening your guests isn't exactly polite either, he countered. It's not like you don't deserve it. Unbothered, Elias took a bite. At least if something happened, Anthony would be here to fix me. Who says Anthony's on your side? She snapped. Jasmine. I cut her off quickly, panic surging through me. The last thing I needed was Elias doubting my loyalty. Cole sighed. Please. We're not here to fight. Then what are we here for? Elias asked calmly. Cole leaned forward. To understand if your lives are truly compatible. Anthony may not fully grasp what he's getting into. Elias straightened. It won't be much different than any other relationship. I'll shield him from as much as I can. And yes, he'll learn how to protect himself if necessary. You're planning to train him? Jasmine asked incredulously, turning to me. Before I could respond, Elias added, No. My father will. What? I blurted, shocked. But Elias placed a steady hand on my leg under the table, silently urging me to drop it. The tension thickened until Cole spoke again. Then I have one more question. Do you regret what you did to Anthony? Because frankly, what you did was cruel. The only reason we're even sitting here is because Anthony seems happier now. That's the only thing keeping us from calling the police. But if that changes, we won't hesitate. Elias took a sip of water. I can't stop you from making your own choices. The room fell quiet, and somehow, almost unexpectedly, the conversation shifted toward lighter topics. To my surprise, Elias even asked Cole and Jasmine questions, showing a genuine interest in their lives. There were even moments of laughter, which I hadn't dared to hope for. By the end of the night, I still wasn't sure how my friends truly felt about him. But it hadn't been the disaster I feared. In the car, Elias broke the silence. I like your friends. I turned to him in disbelief. You do? I do, he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Even Jasmine? I asked, half joking. Especially Jasmine, he admitted. I like honesty. I couldn't help but smile. For once, it felt like maybe, just maybe, my world and Elias's could fit together. Tonight was proof of that. But as the thought settled in, so did a heavier one. Meeting my friends was only the beginning. Next came my parents. Chapter 52. Elias Easton POV. Sometimes life finally seems to fall into place. Plans work out. Days feel calm. You breathe easier. I love those stretches of quiet, but I also fear them. The fall after a high can be steep, and the pain sharp. One moment you're holding everything you ever wanted. The next, your hands are empty. Lately, though, things truly were better. Anthony and I had settled into something steady and kind. Sam was back home with me. Even my relationship with my parents was improving. Leah and the usual troublemakers had gone strangely quiet. I kept wondering how long the peace would last. You're awfully quiet today, Anthony said as we drove toward his parents' house, the last big step we needed to take. We're not going to an amusement park, I replied, arching a brow. I know, he sighed. I just hoped you'd take it as calmly as you did with my friends. Friends were one thing. Parents were another. If someone had kidnapped my child, I wouldn't be able to sit across a table from them and make small talk either. I wouldn't blame his parents for refusing even to tolerate me. I took the day off for Sam's birthday, Anthony added, trying to change the subject. That worked. Sam's birthday needed to be different this year, longer than an hour, filled with joy, not just a cake and a gift. Having Anthony there would mean the world to him. What exactly did you tell your parents? I asked as we turned onto their street. The truth, he said with a shrug. But I left out some details, and you should too. Please don't retell everything we've been through. If you say too much, they'll never give us a chance. My hands tightened on the wheel. Hearing my past listed in any form still made my stomach twist. I barely recognized the person I had been then. I wanted to be better for him, and for Sam. I turned onto his parents' block, and slammed the brakes. Flashing lights. Multiple police cars in front of their house. I pulled into a side street, parked, and cut the engine. Why are there police cars outside your parents' place? Anthony's face went pale. I have no idea. Please don't do this, I said quietly. You're not a great liar. I'm serious, I don't know, he insisted, panic widening his eyes. Maybe something happened to them. And that happens exactly when we're supposed to show up? When they know I'll be with you? I shook my head. That's a lot of coincidence. He raked a hand through his hair. I'm telling the truth. Silence pressed in. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I took a breath, then another. Get out of the car, Anthony. What? He stared at me. You can't be serious. I won't ask again, I said, voice tight. Either step out on your own, or I'll make you. You know I'm capable of it. His eyes shone. You really mistreating me like I don't matter. That's not fair, I managed. I thought you trusted me. And now there are patrol cars waiting on the exact day we're coming. How many times do I have to say I don't know what's going on? His voice cracked. How many times do I have to say this is where you get out? My chest ached. Please. Go. He grabbed his bag, stepped out, and shut the door firmly behind him. I drove away without looking back, afraid that if I did, I'd turn around. When I reached home, my father was outside, finishing a cigarette. Why are you in such a good mood? He asked, baffled. It might be the best day of your year, I muttered, brushing past him and heading inside. He'd said he would accept my relationship, but I knew a part of him hoped it would end. Maybe he'd finally get his wish. In my office, I reached for a bottle of whiskey, hands trembling. The door swung open. Dad, look. Sam rolled in with a drawing clutched in his hands, bright-eyed despite the chair he needed on hard days. Not now, Sam, I said, the words harsher than I intended. Just a second, he pleaded, hopeful. I took the paper, ready to praise it quickly so I could be alone with my thoughts. But the sight cut deeper than anything I'd felt all day. The three of us, Sam, Anthony, and me, sketched as a happy family. Anger flared at the wrong target. Myself, the situation, the sudden loss, and I did something I regretted the instant it happened. I fed the drawing into the shredder. The soft hum turned it to narrow ribbons, like confetti for a celebration that would never happen. Don't draw this again, I said, my voice too sharp. Please. Tears pooled in his eyes. He stared at the shredded pieces, then back at me. I'm sorry, he whispered and turned his chair. Reality hit me like a wave. The wheelchair. The pain he hid. The way he always tried to be brave. I set the glass aside, poured the whiskey down the sink and followed him. His room was dim, curtains closed. He lay curled beneath the blankets, cheeks still damp. I knelt beside the bed and smoothed his hair back. I'm sorry, I said softly. I didn't mean it. I'm just upset. Not at you. It's okay, he murmured, voice hoarse. I just don't want you to hate me like Mom does. I could never hate you, I said, kissing his forehead. Not in 1,000 lifetimes. Then why were you mad about my drawing? He asked, brows furrowing. It's complicated, I said gently. Telling him right now that things with Anthony might be broken would only hurt him more. Let's put that aside for today. The sun's out. How about I call Eric and Kai, and we all go for ice cream? His eyes brightened. Really? Really? I said, managing a smile. Get ready. I'll meet you outside. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone and saw missed calls from Anthony. The ache in my chest sharpened. I set the phone down, then picked it back up, blocked his number, and cleared our thread. It felt like scraping something raw. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I wasn't. But I couldn't risk a mistake that would leave Sam alone. I wasn't angry that Anthony might want accountability. I only wished he had told me outright, rather than leaving me to fear a trap. Either way, I had a child who needed me. If this was the end, I would learn to live with it. It was time, again, to move forward. Chapter 53. Anthony Lawrence POV. Someone broke into our house, Mom said as I reached my parents' driveway, minutes after I'd been dropped off by Elias in the worst way possible. Relief washed over me when I saw my parents were unharmed. 2 officers were loading a pair of nervous teenagers, maybe 18, into a patrol car. Dad explained they'd assumed the house was empty. It was obvious this had nothing to do with Elias or his world. While Mom called friends to share the scare, I sat on the curb and called Elias. Then again. And again. No answer. Eventually I slipped my phone back into my pocket and pressed my eyes shut to hold back tears. A few months ago, I would have given anything to be free of him. Now I couldn't imagine a day without him. I was terrified we'd been reset to zero, only this time I'd be the one chasing him. The truth was brutal. I had no address, no direct line to Eric, no other way in. If Elias wanted to block me out, he could. "Anthony, are you all right?" Mom asked gently. "I'm fine," I lied, staring at the sidewalk. "I was just worried about you. The adrenaline's wearing off." Mom didn't buy it. She sat beside me, turned my face toward hers, and brushed away the dampness at the corners of my eyes. "What happened? Where's your friend? Weren't you both coming by?" "I think he broke up with me," I said, the words catching. "He broke up with you?" Her eyes widened. "You were a couple?" I'd only told my parents we were getting along. I wanted them to meet the version of Elias who had changed, the one who genuinely cared. Now I wasn't even sure he still wanted me. "He thought I set him up," I said, defeated. "He saw police at the house and assumed I'd called them." "We didn't," Mom said softly. "But, and please hear me, maybe it's for the best if he steps away." "That's not what I can handle right now," I said, standing, the hurt sharper than I expected. "Wait," she said, rising with me. "I'm trying to understand. One day you're shattered, and now you're heartbroken because someone you clearly love might be gone. I'm overwhelmed, but I want to support you. Tell me the truth so I can help." I nodded, took a steadying breath, and let her guide me inside. For the first time, I planned to tell her everything. A week passed. Silence. When I tried to text, I discovered Elias had blocked me. The last thread between us was gone. "Dr. Lawrence, your next patient is ready," a nurse said, knocking me out of my haze. "Send them in," I replied, forcing my focus back onto work. Jace walked in grinning like he'd arrived at a theme park. I wished the desk between us were twice as wide. "So, this is where the magic happens," he said, taking a seat. "You couldn't wait until after my shift?" I sighed. "If you're here to cause trouble, please don't do it at the hospital." "I prefer to be memorable," he said lightly. "Artists and all that." I steadied my voice. "What do you want?" "Perspective," he said, unbuttoning his shirt before I could stop him. "Also a checkup. Chest pain. Or maybe you could simply tell me where to aim to avoid getting blood on my clothes." He smiled as if discussing a recipe. "I'm not giving you a lesson in anatomy for that," I said. "If you're actually having symptoms, I'll examine you. Otherwise, we're done." "You're very calm for someone who should be nervous," he mused, then shrugged and redid his buttons. "Fine. Updates then. Elias and Leah called off their engagement." My heart lurched. Elias had said he wanted out, but I didn't think it would happen so quickly. "Oh, you didn't know?" Jace smirked. "Also, Leah's busy. She's expecting. Not his. With that in mind, she's less interested in making your life harder, at least for now." My throat went dry. "Is that the only reason you came?" "I do enjoy delivering good news," he said. "It's rare." He stood, waved, and left as casually as he'd arrived. For the rest of my shift, his visit kept my mind occupied. But when I unlocked my quiet apartment, the emptiness returned. Night after night I sat in the kitchen with tea and my phone, hoping, willing a call or message to appear. Sometimes I made it to bed, other times I fell asleep at the counter and woke to my alarm. I hadn't told my friends. I wanted to believe this was temporary, that he'd come back, that we'd talk, that we'd fix what a misunderstanding had broken. I took a sip of lukewarm tea and closed my eyes. Please come back. Chapter 54. Elias Easton POV. I sat at my desk, doing something that made no practical sense, rebuilding the colorful confetti in my trash bin. Hours earlier, I'd shredded Sam's birthday drawing in a moment of anger. Now I'd pushed my paperwork aside and carefully glued each tiny strip back where it belonged. I couldn't explain why, only that finishing the picture felt like stitching together things I'd broken elsewhere. A soft knock. "Dad?" I slid a stack of files over the nearly finished picture. "Yes." Sam stood in the doorway, on his feet today instead of the chair, bright but cautious. Are we still meeting Tony to celebrate my birthday? I had almost forgotten. I hadn't told Sam that things with Anthony had fallen apart, and his hope made it harder. I started to explain, saw the disappointment forming, and changed course. I've got a few documents to finish. Then we'll go. His face lit up. Maybe Anthony wouldn't be home, I told myself. If so, the day's letdown wouldn't be on me. We packed the wheelchair, just in case, and drove to Anthony's apartment. He opened the door, but then, before I could react, Sam bounded into his arms and Anthony lifted him easily. I steadied myself. Elias, he began. I'm not here to talk, I cut in, keeping my voice even. Today is about Sam. We'll celebrate like we planned, and then we're gone. That's it. It was the only way I could be near him without doing something reckless. Even so, the closer he stood, the more my thoughts went out of focus. The distance I'd promised myself vanished whenever he was in the room. A camera flash snapped me back. Anthony had given Sam a small digital camera, and Sam had already captured an unflattering photo of me blinking. Please don't do that again, I said, trying for stern and landing somewhere near embarrassed. They both laughed. I didn't. We went outside to enjoy the mild weather. I kept to a shaded bench, watching from afar while Anthony showed Sam angles, light, and focus. The two of them working together always managed to soften me, whether I wanted it to or not. Can I take a picture of both of you? Sam called. Absolutely not, I started, but Anthony had already sat down beside me. The air left my lungs. You don't get to be gloomy the whole time, he whispered. Not today. Excuse me, I muttered, and Sam, delighted, snapped the moment, a portrait of my glare and Anthony's half-smile. I decided that was enough. We grab our things and go. But back at the apartment, Anthony brought out a small chocolate cake. Sam cheered. I stayed quiet while he paged through his photos and demolished his slice. You didn't bake that, I said eventually. Nice to hear you still have energy to critique me, Anthony replied, gathering plates for the dishwasher. When Sam was absorbed in the camera again, I followed Anthony to the kitchen. Stop acting like you're the only one who was hurt. You ended things. That makes me the one left behind, he said, voice unsteady but firm. I pulled away because your street was lined with police, I shot back. On the exact day we were visiting. What was I supposed to think? There were 2 teenagers trying to break in, he said, frustrated. That's it. And the fact that you didn't even listen, just told me to get out and then blocked me, wrecked me. His eyes glistened. The weight of my mistake settled in. I had leapt to the worst conclusion and treated him like an enemy. He went on, more quietly. It felt like you were looking for a reason to walk away. Like once I told you how I felt, you were done with me. Bored was the last word anyone could use for Anthony. Since the moment our lives collided, he'd upended everything. And now he'd said it plainly, he loved me. I guessed, I hadn't heard him say it. I'm not interested in anyone else, I told him. I haven't been. I won't be. Silence. The two of us on opposite sides of the kitchen, the argument dissolving into that fragile honesty we rarely showed anyone else. I'm sorry, I said at last. For not trusting you. For hurting you. Again. He exhaled. I get why it looked bad. Our history doesn't help. But I needed you to see I'm not that person anymore. I gave you a second chance because I believe you aren't either. How do we move forward? I asked. What do you want? He countered. You know. I want the same. We both smiled, small, relieved. I stepped closer, cupped his cheek, and kissed him once, gently. A promise, not a performance. We pulled apart, remembering Sam in the next room. Except Sam had fallen asleep on the couch, camera hugged to his chest. I covered him with a blanket while Anthony watched, a quiet warmth in his eyes. We kept the rest of the night simple. That is, until a pained sound came from the living room. I started to rise. I've got him, Anthony said. He returned carrying Sam and settled him between us on the bed. Pain meds will take a bit, he murmured, one arm around Sam's shoulders. I wiped away tears as the medication kicked in and Sam's breathing evened out. When I glanced up, Anthony had drifted off too, calm, protective, his arms still around my son. My heart stuttered at the sight. I took one photo with my phone, just one, and set it as my home screen. Then I eased closer, slipped an arm around them both, and finally let the day go. For once, everything felt like it belonged in the same picture. Chapter 55. Anthony Lawrence POV. Ready for your first lesson? Elias's father, George, asked with a faint smirk. He looked far more excited about this than I felt. Standing alone with him in a clearing surrounded by trees, miles from anything, did not help. Clearly intentional, no interruptions, no witnesses, and plenty of space for lessons no one should see. I didn't exactly feel safe, but Elias had promised nothing would happen. I chose to trust him. I don't really have a choice, I said, bracing myself. No, George replied evenly. You don't. You need to be able to protect my son and my grandson if it ever comes to that. I'm not sure I can do that. Wouldn't it be easier to hire more bodyguards? Think about what happened to Sam. Think about the night you were nearly killed. Bodyguards were present both times. He had a point. It didn't make me feel better. All right, he said. Simple warm-up. Simple was generous. He sent me running laps until my legs threatened mutiny. I tried, I really did, but his comments cut through the air. Pick up the pace. Are you trying to embarrass yourself? Eventually I signaled that I was tapped out. Pathetic, he muttered. The calisthenics were worse. Push-ups turned my arms to jelly. My form trembled, my breathing frayed. What do you call that? Are you even trying? I pushed lower, harder. My body refused. Finally, the warm-up ended, and I thought the worst was over, until George handed me a handgun. My hands shook as I searched for the right grip. Focus and follow instructions. This is not a game, he said, voice like glass. Mistakes can be deadly. I swallowed and did my best, but every adjustment exposed something else I didn't know. Unbelievable, he said at last, packing away gear. You've got a long way to go to meet my standards. I believed him. Aren't surgeons supposed to have precision and calm? He added, brows raised. I'd rather not think about what you did to my grandson's brain. He's doing well, I answered. If you don't trust me, schedule an MRI. He blinked, surprised. So even after all that, you kept your spirit. That might help when you're staring down an enemy. I didn't respond. I wanted a shower and a nap, not more commentary. He reminded me, again, that next time he'd expect my best effort. I nodded and wondered what best looked like to him. Have fun. Elias teased when I slipped into Jasmine's cafe, freshly showered and already sore in places I didn't know could ache. If possible, I think your father likes me even less now, I sighed, sinking into the seat beside Elias and Sam. Really? Elias chuckled. Because he called me to say you did better than he expected and appreciated your effort. I stared. You're joking. He looked disappointed the entire time. He does that on purpose, Elias said. Keeps people pushing forward. There's always room to improve, everywhere, even for me. Jasmine arrived with 2 coffees and a chocolate milkshake for Sam, squeezed my shoulder, and grinned at the kid. You're adorable, and look so much like your dad, she said, flicking a glance at Elias. What's that supposed to mean? Elias asked, amused and wary. That's between me and Sam, she said breezily, and ducked back to help the new hire, who was clearly overwhelmed by the afternoon rush. It was oddly comforting to see my friends getting used to Elias. Having Sam there helped. Everyone loved him, except, painfully, his own mother. Did you hear Leah might be pregnant again? I asked, sipping my coffee. You're kidding, Elias said, startled. She shouldn't be caring for more children right now. Jace mentioned it, I said carefully. I don't know if it's true. Jace? Elias's smile thinned. He tightened his grip on his cup. You two texting like old friends now? He came to the hospital complaining about chest pain, I explained. The last thing I wanted was to stir up more tension today. Before Elias could respond, Sam's milkshake tipped. In his scramble to save it, he redirected the remaining chocolate straight into Elias's lap. Sam, Elias groaned, grabbing napkins. Sam burst into giggles. I nearly did too, but hid my smile behind my hand. I can see you laughing, Anthony, Elias said, aiming a mock glare at me. And thank you for the tremendous help. You're acting like a 5-year-old. Your son's the mature one, Jasmine said, dropping off extra napkins. And thankfully it hit you and not my floor. Thankfully, Elias echoed dryly. I looked at him and Sam, messy and happy at a corner table in my best friend's cafe, and felt the strangest warmth. Months ago, our first encounter in this very room had been a nightmare. Now, somehow, the same place felt safe. I used to wish I could rewind and erase him from my life. For the first time, I didn't. Elias Easton POV. Regret doesn't vanish, it thins. Every day I tried to show Anthony I was different, that I was building instead of breaking. Some repairs come easy, others take time. As I blotted at the last of the milkshake, a woman walked by and openly judged Anthony. He didn't notice, too absorbed in helping Sam frame a photo, but I did. I met her eyes until she looked away. Fixing his reputation is the hardest part. I can't threaten the whole city into rewriting its opinions, and I won't. So, I set something in motion. Kai broke up with Eric a few days ago, out of nowhere, and Eric asked me for work to distract himself. I gave him a project, bring down Spencer Channing, the surgeon who spent months undermining Anthony. If I removed Spencer, it wouldn't be with violence that would only make things worse. Eric is creative and principled. He'll find a way to expose the truth. You've gained weight, I said to Anthony a little later, softer than it sounds. His face was less hollow, his features had relaxed. He looked healthier. Is that a compliment? He asked, suddenly self-conscious. It is, I said. I'd love you either way, but I'm glad you're doing better. Don't get used to it, he sighed. Your father is determined to make me burn every extra calorie with those training sessions. I laughed and took his hand under the table. If his biggest worry right now was sore muscles, I'd take it. I didn't tell him that my parents, after everything, had agreed to let us marry if we ever chose to. I didn't want to rush him or make this moment heavy. Maybe marriage would come, maybe it wouldn't. What mattered was the here and now, Sam's grin over a camera screen, Anthony's small, tired smile, the ordinary sweetness of a shared afternoon. For once, the pieces seemed to fit. The world felt, briefly, beautifully, simple. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.